Drugs. Nurse, get this man some drugs. Can't you see he's in pain? No. Heroin. Heroin, Frank. That's a pretty tall order, Nordberg. You're going to have to give me a couple days on that one. They don't make them like this anymore, folks. They certainly don't. I'm John Renton with the retro view of The Naked Gun from the Files of Police Squad. One of the best comedies of all fucking time. Truly a benchmark of comedies, and truly something that I will always love until my last breath. And that being said, the subsequent sequels would end up being pretty goddamn good. I still have to go back and rewatch them, but these movies hold a special place in my heart. And after retro viewing Airplane, and with the Naked Gun reboot slash requel, whatever the fuck you actually want to call it, I guess continuation, something or other, while honoring this and having Liam Neeson and Pamela Anderson in it, and some other callbacks, while trying to be its own movie, I decided to revisit this just mere hours before I see that. So, depending on when you see the review of this particular movie, and I'm just going to keep holding up the visual gag right here, yeah, I decided to just revisit it for fun. And this is fun. It was written and directed by David Zucker, and also basically involves the two Zuckers and Jim Abrams, who did Airplane, and would go on to do the other two Naked Gun movies. And Leslie Nielsen, bless Leslie Nielsen, may he rest in peace. What an actor he was before he got into comedy like this and had basically a second career as being a slapstick wonder. So, they weren't the only writers, by the way. There was Pat Proft, who would go on to do Hot Shots and Wrongfully Accused. Hot Shots was actually pretty good. The sequel, Wrongfully Accused is just like ripping off The Fugitive and other stuff and wasn't that great, but that was when Leslie Nielsen was basically just doing it for a paycheck. So you have Leslie Nielsen as Lieutenant Frank Drebin, and you have his love interest, Jane Spencer, played by Priscilla Presley, who at this age was way, way, way too old for Elvis Presley, and I know that Elvis died about 11 years before this, but Google how old Priscilla Presley wasn't when she, was courted, groomed, basically preyed upon by Elvis Presley, who did make great music. You can decide for yourself how iconic his music truly was and whether he ripped people off or not. But yeah, Priscilla, poor Priscilla. Feel sorry for her too because her daughter died. That being said, we have Ricardo Montalban, Rich Corinthian Leather himself, and Khan as Vincent Ludwig, the villain. And you have George Kennedy, who wanted to be an Airplane to parody himself, but had to wait a number of years to be Captain Ed Hawken. And you also have Detective Nordberg, played by O.J. Simpson. And you have to wonder what O.J. Simpson's career would have been like if he had been able to find the real killers in time. Obviously, he was the fucking killer. I mean, obviously, he fucking was. But it's just, we have to keep up with the bit because O.J. Simpson can't keep up with anything at this point. At a $14.5 million budget, you kind of can see why, because there was some destruction and some cameos. I mean, there was Reggie fucking Jackson in this, and some other sports personalities, and just a whole lot of fun, and also quite a few, like explosions, at least at one particular scene. That would be $39.5 million in today's money, a $9.3 million opening, $25.3 million in today's dollars, $78.7 million gross, U.S. and worldwide, because I don't think it really got much of a worldwide gross, and that would be $214.5 million in today's money. So basically, Lieutenant Frank Drebin must navigate clearing the sullied name of Detective Nordberg, and also stop the assassination of Queen Elizabeth II, which, quite frankly, we really shouldn't have bothered stopping, because let's take a look at what the Queen would end up doing. That's okay. She didn't make it, at least to this point. So, I love the opening because it's just, and by the way, this is just going to be me talking about some of my favorite scenes, because to talk about the plot of this, that's pretty much it. He fights all the world leaders, including Gorbachev, and rubs the thing off of his head. And, there's a mohawk on, the Arab leader. I don't actually know what country it's supposed to be. I don't think Saudi Arabia, but nevertheless, has an orange mohawk. Hey, who are you? I'm Lieutenant Frank Drebin, police squad. Don't let me catch you guys in America. Boom, the doors hit him. We go to credits, where we have the police squad thing. And by the way, this is based on the police squad show. That was short-lived that Abrams and the two Zuckers made. I think it was only 6 episodes, but it was them doing deadpan stuff, Nielsen and co. And that's the thing that makes this movie work. It's just the deadpan reactions to the ridiculous gags and ridiculous dialogue. It's just so funny. But the iconic, police siren and everything as they follow, as we follow it through. We follow through someone's house and then the women's locker room. And I see it's okay when a camera crew goes in a woman's locker room. But never mind. Can't talk about that until the cases are settled. And on a roller coaster of love, say what? And then we have Nordberg trying to stop this criminal activity. He puts his foot through the goddamn door, but then has to unlock it goofily. Police, throw down your guns, and it's just him. He just has one gun, and there's like 10 other people. One guy throws his gun down. Everybody just looks at it. It's just the simple shit in this movie that works. But then he gets shot 6 times. Goes into some wet paint, gets his foot caught in a bear trap, goes over the goddamn side. There's also a cake there for some reason. And Frank comes back from Beirut. We all heard what you did. And Frank lost his girlfriend. She went with somebody else. And he gets on the microphone and says, hey, you have any idea how much a man can hurt inside? Frank, they're not here for you. Weird Al Yankovic is on the plane. It actually was Weird Al. So that was actually kind of funny. And then they arrive back at police squad headquarters, with all the carts of luggage from the airport. How did they get all those, and how were they able to transport them? Even a little bit. I mean, I don't think that vehicle would have been able to tug all that, but it's funny. And Frank ends up basically saying, I came back as soon as I heard, and then sees Nordberg's wife and says, I came as soon as I heard, and ends up kind of folding up the bed and a whole bunch of funny comedy. And then he says, Nordberg's trying to tell him about it's a shipment of drugs, but then he mentions heroin, and it's going to be a tall order. You got to give me a couple days on that one. And the plot to save the Queen is basically made, or basically hatched, and it's just so ridiculous because you have Ricardo Montalban there, Mr. Rich Corinthian Leather. I mean, if you're old enough, you know what I'm talking about. If you're like, I would say if you were under 40, I don't know if you're actually going to know what that is. But there's a samurai pen, unbreakable, impervious to everything but water, and then it goes in the water, and he stabs this like poison fish, and it's so hilarious. It's just because Leslie Nielsen, again, playing it straight. Priscilla Presley is Mr. Leather's assistant, and she falls down the stairs, funnily enough. Great bumps by the stunt person, assuming that there were actual stunts and not just noise. But then she goes to get him some files, and she goes up on a ladder, and once she gets up there, he says, nice beaver, thank you, I just had it stuffed, and brings a stuffed beaver. It's so fucking stupid. It's just so fucking ridiculous. And then he gets back, and his airbag deploys because he hits something, and it's like these giant balloons that drive this car, and the car is on fire because he shoots it, and it explodes. Anybody get a look at the driver? And then this one scientist has developed these disabling cufflinks where you just shoot them and it disables somebody quickly. Here, let me test it on Ed. Why? He just pissed. George Kennedy was great in this. I mean, he was great in the other ones too. Rest in peace, George Kennedy. But then then we get this meeting where basically Ludwig shows his true colors. That's why we love him. And says to, this guy Papschmier, that's his actual name, here, let me demonstrate what I'm going to do. We're going to have unknowing assassins, and it's his assistant, or his other secretary, or whatever. I must kill Papschmier, and it's this woman, and the gun's not loaded. And I must kill Papschmier. Just so dumb. And then this doctor tries to kill Nordberg, and they go on this pursuit with this driving student, where you usually would be going down 65 down the wrong way of a one-way street, backs up, and this guy, calls her a dumb broad. Extend your arm, extend your middle finger. Very good, Stephanie. Well done. They race. They try to get the doctor. The doctor blows up, hitting a gas truck, but he's fine. Hits like a missile truck that just happened to be going by like it's fucking Russia in the 1970s or now. And he ends up going in the fireworks shop. Nothing to see here. Please disperse. Nothing to see here. It's so funny. And Priscilla shows up. Well, Jane shows up. And it's just. She shows up after Frank basically is walking around and doing a narration thing, Dragnet and Police Squad style, and says, and where the hell was I? Because he ends up out of the city and on the goddamn Hollywood Hills or wherever. And she's boiling a roast. How hot and wet do you like it? Very hot and awfully wet. It's ridiculous. So ridiculous. The full body condom scene was hilarious. And then we get something good, not by Herman's Hermits. They're doing a montage of eating, partying, having fun. They do a double clothesline on a couple people on a beach. And then he goes to Ludwig's office, ends up burning most of the shit down. Gets out there, and there's all these statues with all these dicks on there. Breaks into this woman's apartment unintentionally and is holding this, concrete dick, and she's screaming. Woman had a really nice chest, I do want to say, by the way. I'm sorry. It's impossible not to notice. But, assault with a concrete dildo, I can't say certain things. I kind of want to be careful. But with a concrete dildo, I don't know why that line always gets me. It's just so funny. And then Frank has a bunch of bad shit in his fridge because he never eats, rotting like cheese that's starting to move, a frozen block of ice in the freezer, Chinese food that's just way past its expiration date. And then he basically is like, Jane, you're in on all this stuff, and she ends up slapping him. Could she slap me like that? And Frank tries to save the queen after getting his ears basically blown out, and he ends up on, in looks like the throes of passion with the queen on the goddamn table. Her legs are up in the air, that kind of stuff. Because it's funny, because who would want to see the queen like that? Absolutely nobody. But it's funny. And it's going to be at a baseball game. The assassination attempt. Which actually would lead to Queen Elizabeth II really attending a baseball game and Reggie Jackson actually being one of the first, or being the first in line and stuff like that. And they even used silly footage from this to be utilized. So there are various announcers there. I think like 2 or 3 baseball announcers. Then we get to Dick Vitale, who's beaten cancer once again, and that is great. And Jim Palmer and various others. And it's Enrico Palazzo. And I believe ESPN actually did a tribute to Enrico Palazzo. The umpire that could. I mean, it wasn't actually an umpire. He would turn into an umpire, but he was an opera singer that Leslie Nielsen knocked out and then pretended to sing the national anthem, and he couldn't sing it at all. And basically, Ludwig's there, Jane's there, they're sitting in the press, or they're sitting in, one of the boxes. The queen's in her own private box. Gross. And then we have ridiculousness where, Leslie Nielsen pretends to, get really into it with, being, the strikes and stuff like that. Strike 3, he's doing the dancing and all that stuff. It's hilarious. And we get I Love L.A. by Randy Newman. Not short people because they have no reason to live, but I digress. They get to the 7th inning stretch. He's almost got everybody patted down, but not everybody. And then he starts fighting with the other umpires because he's trying to prevent this last out. As this one guy's caught in the middle of this, let's ball back and forth, kind of keep away. But you got to stay within the baseline and run out. And that's like the limited baseball knowledge I still remember. Because I loved baseball when I was younger. Never loved the Mariners because they always underachieved. But Reggie Jackson, yes, the famed was Reggie Jackson still playing in '88? Or... because it just seems like he would have been done by then. I did like a little bit earlier, they had a montage of various people and players that were having bloopers. Like one person getting hit by a car, one person getting attacked by a tiger at second base, one guy's head falling off. How about that? But then we get a bench clearing brawl. Reggie Jackson almost shoots the queen. Frank's cufflinks fire into the stands and hit a bigger lady that falls right on Reggie Jackson. So he's pinned down and not sure what the hell's going on. And then Priscilla is being taken away. Jane's being taken away by Rich Corinthian Leatherman. And he ends up getting, sent over the top after getting shot with more cufflinks, because I guess Frank had like 18 pairs. And then he gets flattened by a steamroller. Oh, my father went the same way, Ed said. And then the device gets stepped on, and the one last assassin was Jane, and Jane is going to kill Frank, but Frank convinces Jane by talking about, I finally found somebody I could love, good, clean love without utensils. You have to use utensils with somebody, you got some issues, buddy. But he loves Jane. I wanted to wait until we were alone, because it's an engagement ring, and then everybody's apologizing to each other because it's all emotional. The players are hugging. You get nations that should not be hugging, like Israel and other. Oh boy, given what's going on now. And then, everything's good. Nordberg's going to be back on the force in a week. Gets slapped on the back, goes down the steps and launched into the air, and then we go to credits. And that is Naked Gun from the Files of Police Squad. Honestly, one of the finest comedies that I will always remember. But yeah, it's fucking great, and let's see how the new one is in just a few hours. So agree, disagree with what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Rentland. Until we meet again, happy trails to you.